The dismissal. The golden halls of the Galactic Senate stretched endlessly upward, their crystalline walls catching and reflecting the light of 1,000 different star systems. Ambassador Krexaval of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the central podium, his 6 arms spread wide in a gesture of supreme confidence. His scaled skin shimmered with an iridescent purple that marked his species as one of the oldest and most powerful in the known galaxy. Esteemed colleagues, Krexval began, his voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years of Zephyrian dominance, we gather today to discuss the expansion into the uncharted sectors of the Orion Arm. Our scouts have identified 17 systems ripe for resource extraction, all containing nothing more than primitive electromagnetic signatures or complete silence. The assembled representatives from 43 civilizations murmured their approval. The Zephyrians had led the galactic community for millennia, their technology and military might unmatched. When they spoke of expansion, others listened and followed. Senator Yilmari of the Cetarian Collective raised a translucent tentacle. What of the old warnings? The data cores speak of something called humans in that region. The archives suggest we should approach with caution. The entire Senate chamber erupted in laughter. Even Yilmar's own delegation seemed embarrassed by the question. Krexval's 4 eyes narrowed with amusement as he gestured dismissively. The human myths? Really, Senator? Next you'll be warning us about the Tooth Fairy, or the cosmic dragons of Andromeda. Humans are bedtime stories, nothing more. Tales invented by our ancestors to explain the unexplained. We've sent probe after probe into those sectors. We've found primitive radio signals, yes, but nothing that matches the ridiculous legends of these supposed super predators. The stories of humans had circulated through galactic civilization for thousands of years. They spoke of bipedal creatures from a death world, beings who could survive anything, who hunted by exhaustion, who threw objects as weapons, and who possessed something called spite that made them fight even when logic dictated surrender. The tales grew more ridiculous with each telling. Humans who split atoms for power, humans who left their planet on controlled explosions, humans who would rather die than submit. The mathematical probability of such a species existing and surviving is essentially 0, added Dr. Theknes, the Senate's chief xenobiologist. No species could evolve on a world with such high gravity, extreme temperature variations, and abundant predators. And even if they did, the psychological profile described in the myths would be evolutionarily disadvantageous. Cooperation and submission to stronger forces is how civilizations survive and thrive. Krexval nodded appreciatively. Precisely. The sector we're most interested in contains a G-type star with 9 planets. The 3rd planet shows primitive industrial signatures, but our long-range scans indicate a species barely past their atomic age. They haven't even colonized their own moon properly. We'll establish mining operations in their outer system, extract what we need, and be gone before they develop the technology to detect us. The vote was unanimous. The Zephyrian Empire would lead a joint resource extraction mission into what the star charts labeled as System Sol 3. The primitive inhabitants of the 3rd planet, whoever they were, would never even know the galactic community had visited. 3 months later, the extraction fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Admiral Zaxtor commanded the operation from the bridge of the dreadnought Supremacy's Crown, a vessel larger than most asteroids and armed with enough firepower to crack a moon. Around him, 200 mining vessels, processing stations, and support craft spread out in perfect formation. Initial scans confirm our intelligence, reported his science officer. The 3rd planet shows industrial activity consistent with a level 2 civilization. Nuclear fission, primitive satellites, chemical rockets. They've sent a few probes to their neighboring planets, but nothing of significance. Zaxtor's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. And the outer system? Rich in resources, Admiral. The 6th planet's moons contain enough hydrocarbons to fuel our fleet for 1,000 cycles. The asteroid belt between the 4th and 5th planets has rare metals in abundance. We can strip this system clean in 6 months, begin operations, and maintain communication silence. No need to frighten the primitives with our presence. The fleet dispersed throughout the outer solar system. Massive harvesting platforms descended on Saturn's moon Titan, drilling through its thick atmosphere to extract the liquid methane below. Mining drones swarmed through the asteroid belt, consuming entire asteroids and processing them into refined materials. Jupiter's moons were systematically cataloged and stripped of their valuable resources. For 2 weeks, the operation proceeded flawlessly. The primitive species on the third planet continued their simple broadcasts, unaware of the cosmic strip mining occurring in their backyard. Zaxtor had already begun composing his report to the Senate, detailing the success of the operation and recommending similar actions in other primitive systems. Then, everything changed. It started with a single anomaly. A mining drone in the asteroid belt suddenly went offline. Then another. Within minutes, 17 drones had vanished from the sensor grid. Zaxtor initially dismissed it as a technical malfunction or perhaps collision with uncharted debris. "Admiral," his communications officer suddenly announced, voice tight with confusion, "we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the third planet. Impossible. They don't have the technology to detect us, let alone communicate at this range." "Sir, the signal is using our quantum encryption protocols. It's addressed specifically to you." The bridge fell silent. Zaxtor felt a cold sensation spreading through his thorax, an emotion his species rarely experienced. Fear. Put it through. The main view screen flickered to life, and every being on the bridge recoiled in shock. Staring back at them was a creature that matched the ancient descriptions perfectly. Bipedal. Forward-facing eyes. No natural weapons visible. It appeared almost fragile, yet something in its expression made Zaxtor's instincts scream danger. "Admiral Zaxtor of the Zephyrian Empire," the creature spoke in perfect galactic standard, causing another wave of shock. "I am Admiral Chen Wei of the United Earth Defense Command. You are currently conducting illegal mining operations in sovereign human space. You have exactly 1 solar rotation to cease all activities and withdraw your fleet." Zaxtor's training reasserted itself. "This is impossible. Humans don't exist. You're a myth. And even if you were real, you're a level 2 civilization. You don't have faster-than-light travel. You don't have quantum communications. We don't broadcast our capabilities, Admiral," Chen Wei interrupted, a strange expression on his face that the translation matrix identified as a smile. "We've been listening to your galactic community for 70 of our years. We know about your Senate, your technology, your military doctrine. We chose to remain hidden, to appear primitive because we learned long ago that the universe is full of species like yours, species who take what they want from those they deem inferior. Even if you are these mythical humans, you cannot threaten us. We have 200 vessels. You have primitive chemical rockets." The human's smile widened. "Admiral, I need you to check your sensor readings on mining drone sectors 7 through 23. Zaxtor gestured to his science officer, who frantically worked his console. The officer's scales went pale. "Admiral, they're gone. All 17 drones, the 3 processing stations, gone. No debris, no energy signatures. They just vanished." "Now check your count on my primitive satellites," Chen Wei continued. The science officer's hands trembled as he worked. "Sir," the planet shows, "there are over 3,000 new objects in orbit. They appeared in the last 30 seconds. They're warships, Admiral. I'm reading energy signatures consistent with antimatter reactors and weapons systems we've only theorized about." The bridge crew stood frozen as the implications sank in. The humans were real. They had technology that surpassed even the Zephyrians, and they had been hiding, watching, waiting. The reckoning Admiral Zaxtor struggled to maintain his composure as 3,000 human warships materialized around Earth, like ghosts becoming solid. His tactical display showed weapons locks from every single vessel, each targeting a different ship in his fleet. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. The humans could destroy his entire force in seconds. "How?" Zaxtor managed to ask. "Your broadcasts, your technology signatures, everything showed you were primitive." Chen Wei's expression remained calm, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "We learned from our own history, Admiral. When technologically superior civilizations encounter less advanced ones, it rarely ends well for the latter. So when we detected your galactic community 90 years ago, we made a choice. We would hide in plain sight, broadcasting old signals while our real development continued in places you couldn't detect." The human gestured, and the view screen split to show multiple images. Underground cities stretching for miles beneath Earth's surface. Massive shipyards hidden in the hollow asteroids of the belt. Research stations phased slightly out of normal space-time. Mars transformed into a fortress world beneath its red dust. "You thought you were so superior," Chen Wei continued, "that you never considered the possibility that we were letting you see what we wanted you to see. Your long-range scans only detected what we allowed them to detect. Your probes only found what we wanted them to find. This is impossible, breathed the science officer. The energy requirements alone for hiding such infrastructure. Impossible for you, Chen Wei corrected. You see, the myths about humans got one thing wrong. We're not super predators or unstoppable warriors. We're engineers, problem solvers. When the universe presents us with a challenge, we don't accept defeat. We adapt, we overcome, we find a way. Zaxtor's mind raced. The Senate must be informed. The galaxy needs to know. The Senate will know exactly what we want them to know, Chen Wei interrupted. You see, Admiral, we've been debating for decades about whether to reveal ourselves. Your illegal mining operation just made that decision for us, but we'll do it on our terms. Suddenly, alarm screamed across the bridge. The navigation officer's voice cracked with panic. Admiral, hyperspace is... It's locked. We can't open a jump window. That's our gravitational interdiction field, Chen Wei explained casually. Another technology you thought was theoretical. We've surrounded your fleet with a bubble of warped space-time. You're not going anywhere until we say so. For the first time in his life, Zaxtor felt true helplessness. His fleet, the pride of the Zephyrian Empire, was trapped like insects in a web. What do you want? Justice, Chen Wei replied, and his voice carried an edge that made every non-human on the bridge instinctively step back. You entered our system without permission. You stole our resources. You dismissed our very existence as myth. These actions have consequences. The view screen changed to show Earth itself, and Zaxtor gasped. The planet was surrounded by a shimmering energy field that pulsed with colors beyond the visible spectrum. As he watched, the field expanded, reaching out toward the moon, then Mars, then continuing to grow. A planetary shield that encompasses an entire solar system? The science officer's voice was barely a whisper. The power requirements. It's impossible. You keep using that word, Chen Wei noted. Let me show you something else impossible. Space in front of the Supremacy's crown rippled, and a human ship materialized barely 100 meters from the bridge. It was smaller than a Zephyrian corvette, sleek and dark, almost invisible against the stars. But the energy readings from it made every sensor on the dreadnought scream warnings. That single ship, Chen Wei said quietly, carries enough firepower to crack a planet. We built them not because we wanted to, but because we knew that someday someone like you would come, someone who thought that might makes right, someone who needed to learn that humanity doesn't bow to bullies. You're bluffing, Zaxtor said, but his voice lacked conviction. No species would destroy an entire fleet over a mining dispute. Chen Wei's expression hardened. Admiral, let me tell you about humans. We spent thousands of years killing each other over lines on maps, different sky gods, and resources. We nearly destroyed our planet 3 times, but each time we pulled back from the brink. We learned, we grew, and we made a promise. Never again would we let anyone, human or otherwise, take what was ours without consequences. The human paused, letting his words sink in. But we also learned mercy, so here's what's going to happen. You're going to return every single atom of material you've extracted from our system. Your processing stations will reconstruct our moons and asteroids exactly as they were. Then, you're going to send a message to your Senate. What message? That humans are real, that we're watching, and that any species that enters our space without permission, that takes our resources without asking, that treats us as inferiors to be exploited, will learn why our ancestors made us into legends. Zaxtor wanted to refuse. His pride, his training, everything screamed against submitting to a supposedly inferior species. But the 3,000 weapons locks on his fleet argued persuasively for compliance. And if we refuse? Chen Wei didn't answer immediately. Instead, the view screen showed a tactical simulation. In it, the human fleet engaged the Zephyrians. The battle lasted exactly 43 seconds. No Zephyrian ship survived. Your empire has ruled for 10,000 years, Chen Wei said softly. It would be a shame if it ended because you couldn't say 2 simple words. I'm sorry. The bridge was silent except for the hum of instruments. Zaxtor's officers looked at him, waiting. The Admiral's 4 eyes closed in succession, a gesture of deep thought among his people. When they opened, he had made his decision. Begin returning all extracted materials, he ordered his crew. Then, facing Chen Wei, he spoke the words that would echo through galactic history. On behalf of the Zephyrian Empire, I apologize for our trespass. Chen Wei nodded. Apology accepted. Your fleet will be escorted to the edge of our system once restoration is complete. You may tell your Senate that humanity is open to peaceful contact and trade, but also tell them this: we are done hiding. We are done being myths, and we are done letting others decide our fate. 6 months later, the Galactic Senate convened an emergency session. The footage from the Sol encounter had been viewed millions of times. The impossible human technology, their patient deception, their swift and decisive response to intrusion, it all pointed to a new power in the galaxy. Ambassador Krexaval stood once again at the central podium, but his posture was different now, humbled. Esteemed colleagues, I motion to recognize the United Earth government as a sovereign member of the galactic community, with full rights and protections under our laws. Seconded, came voices from around the chamber. The vote was unanimous. On Earth, Chen Wei stood in the United Nations chamber addressing the world. For 70 years we've hidden in the shadows, afraid of what was out there. But we've learned something important. The galaxy doesn't respect the weak. It doesn't protect the helpless. But it does understand strength, and it does recognize determination. He paused, looking directly at the cameras. We are humanity. We are the species that climbed down from the trees and reached for the stars. We are the ones who split the atom, who cured diseases, who turned dreams into reality. We are no longer legends. We are no longer myths. We are here, we are real, and we are ready to take our place among the stars. The chamber erupted in applause, but Chen Wei wasn't finished. But let us remember this moment. We showed mercy when we could have shown wrath. We chose justice over vengeance. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us strong. And that is why, from this day forward, no one will ever again dismiss humanity as a fairy tale. Across the galaxy on 1,000 worlds, beings who had laughed at human myths now studied human history with intense focus. They learned about world wars and pandemics, about moon landings and Mars colonies, about a species that refused to accept limitations, and they understood finally why the ancient warnings had been written. Humans were real, they were watching, and they were magnificent in their terrible potential. The age of hiding was over. The age of humanity among the stars had begun.